Welcome to my channel. I hope you like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet this hat for adults using the bean stitch. It's absolutely beautiful and very beginner friendly, so I hope you like it. Now you can also make this hat for any size, any age, using standard hat size measurements that I'm going to provide you with here in this tutorial. I already did a baby version of this same hat, so I'll leave the link to that tutorial in the information box. Now remember, if you prefer written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop up here on the right side and in the information box as well. Thank you so much for your support. Now to make this hat, this is the yarn that I used. This is a medium number 4 yarn, but like I said, you can use 10 ply, Aran weight, or any yarn weight with any hook size using standard hat size measurements that I'm going to provide you with here in this tutorial. You're going to need about 57 grams, which is what I use to make my hat for adult size. You will need less or more depending on the size that you make. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started, and thank you so much for watching. To begin, I'll be using this 5mm crochet hook, and today I'm using this number 4 yarn. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I'm using, and I told you how much yarn we're going to need for the size that we're making. So here we're going to be making the hat based on standard size measurements, so you can make your hat from a preemie size up to an adult extra large size. I'm going to be making my hat for a large adult, so this is the measurement that I'm going to go by for the width of the crown, and then we're going to go to the total length. But first we're going to make the crown. So this hat is going to be worked from the top down. Now this is how it's going to look once it's done. This is the baby version. I already have a tutorial for this in the information box below. I'll go ahead and leave you the link. Like I said, I'll be doing the large adult size, so the crown needs to measure about 19 centimeters. So let's get started here. To begin, we're going to make a magic circle. So all you need to do is just hold the yarn, wrap it around 2 fingers, hold it right there where it joins, and then insert your hook through this circle and grab a loop. Here's the magic circle. So now I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to be using the bean stitch or the puff stitch. I know this stitch as the bean stitch, so I'm going to be calling it the bean stitch. So to make our first bean stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert your hook through this circle, grab a loop, make sure that these loops here are nice and loose, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop. I have 7 loops on the hook. 2, 4, 6, 7. Now we're going to close this first bean stitch, so grab a loop and pull through all 7 loops. Now you're going to chain 2. Now this first chain here, that is where I'm going to be inserting my hook through when I finish the row. So if you can put a stitch marker there if you like. So now I'm going to make another one. So yarn over, insert your hook, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop. 7 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, yarn over again, and repeat this one more time. So grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, 7 loops on the hook, close, chain 2. One more time. In total, I'm going to make 5. So yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, 7 loops, close, chain 2. I have 4 bean stitches, yarn over again, insert your hook, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop. Again, make sure that these loops are nice and loose so that when you close this, your hook does not get caught in any of those loops. So now chain 2. I have 5 loops here, 2, 4, 5. I'm going to pull this yarn like this so that the circle closes. Once we're done with the hat, you just weave this end here all around. Now to finish, I'm going to go on top of the first bean stitch, which is this first chain that I mentioned. So right there, insert your hook and make a slip stitch. And here is the first row with 5 bean stitches and 5 chain 2 spaces. Now for the second row, I'm going to make a slip stitch into the first chain 2, so right there, and now chain 1. Now into each one of the chain 2 spaces, I'm going to make a bean stitch, chain 1, and then another bean stitch. So let me show you. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook here, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop. I have 7 loops, grab a loop and close, chain 1. Now we're going to do the same thing. So grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop. 7 loops, close, chain 1. Notice that in this row I'm only going to chain 1. Again, in the next chain 2, I'm going to make these 2 bean stitches. So yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, 7 loops, close, chain 1, and then 1 more bean stitch. 7 loops, close, chain 1. And that's how you're going to continue for the second row. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the second row. Now here are my last 2 bean stitches, and then I have a chain here. To finish, I'm going to go on top of the first bean stitch right here into that chain, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. And this is how I finished the second row with a total of 10 bean stitches, and I have 10 chain 1 spaces. Now, before we continue, make sure to put some stitch markers here. That way it's going to be easier from here on. I have put my stitch marker between the 2 bean stitches. So here's 1, then I have a chain space, then I have the next 2, I put a stitch marker, I have a chain space, and then between the next 2, put a stitch marker. There's a chain space between the next 2, put a stitch marker and chain space, and then the last 2 bean stitches. So make sure that you put your stitch markers between the 2 bean stitches. This is because in the next rows, that is where we're going to be increasing from here on. So to continue with the third row, make a slip stitch into the first chain space, which is where I have the first stitch marker. So here I'm going to chain 1. Now make 1 more bean stitch into this same chain space, close, chain 1. Return your stitch marker to mark this chain space between these 2 bean stitches. Now chain 1, and into the next chain 1 here, I'm going to make 1 bean stitch. Chain 1, and then we have the next chain 1. I have a stitch marker, so here I'm going to make 2 bean stitches separated by a chain. So yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, yarn over, grab a loop, 7 loops, close, chain 1, and then 1 more bean stitch in this same chain space. Chain 1, return your stitch marker between these 2 bean stitches, and then in the next chain space, make a bean stitch. We have the next stitch marker in this next chain space. I'm going to make 2 bean stitches separated by 1 chain. There's 1, chain 1, and 1 more. Chain 1. Return your stitch marker, put it in the middle of these 2, and then work a bean stitch here, then 2. 1, 2, and then I'll meet you at the end here of this third row to show you how I'm going to finish this row. I'm here at the end of the third row. I have a total of 15 bean stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, and I also have 15 chain 1 spaces. Now to finish here, I did my last bean stitch, chain 1, go on top of the first bean stitch, and join with a slip stitch. Now for the fourth row, make a slip stitch into the next chain space, remove your stitch marker, and here I'm going to make 2 bean stitches because that's where I had the stitch marker. Remember, In these 5 chain spaces, that's where we do the increases. So here's the first bean stitch, chain 1, and then 1 more. So at the end of each row from here on, we're going to increase 5 bean stitches. Chain 1, place a stitch marker in the middle of these 2, and then continue into the next chain space, which is this one here, and make 1 bean stitch here. And 1 more bean stitch in the next chain space. Chain 1, and we have the next chain space. Here I'm going to make 2. Return your stitch marker and continue along. Here you're going to make 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. At the end of this 4th row, I'm going to have 20 bean stitches. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the 4th row. I have a total of 20 bean stitches. Now to finish, go on top of the first bean stitch and join with a slip stitch. And here's the 4th row with a total of 20 bean stitches. Now for row 5, make a slip stitch into the first chain space, remove the stitch marker, and here we're going to make 2 bean stitches. Here's the first one, chain 1, and 1 more. Return your stitch marker to mark this corner. And now into each one of the next 3 chain spaces, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to make 1 bean stitch. Chain 1, chain 1, and 3. Chain 1, remove the next stitch marker and make 2 bean stitches in the next chain space. There, and place a stitch marker. And that's how you're going to continue for the rest of this 5th row. In the next 3 chain spaces, 1, 2, 3, make 1, then 2. 1, 2, 3, in the next 3, 2, and so on. Continue, finish this 5th row. At the end of this row, I'm going to have 25 bean stitches. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of this 5th row. I have 25 bean stitches. Now to finish this row and all the rows to follow, all you do is just go on top of the first bean stitch and make a slip stitch. Now to start each row from here on, you're going to remove this stitch marker, and into this first chain space make a slip stitch. And since this is a corner stitch, I need to make 2 bean stitches here. So chain 1 and then make your first bean stitch, chain 1, and 1 more. Chain 1, return your stitch marker to mark this first chain space, and then the chain spaces in between the stitch marker. So here I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only going to make 1 bean stitch here. And then 1 more into the next chain space. And 1 last one. There, I have the next corner. Make 2 bean stitches in this corner. return your stitch marker, and then continue and make 1 bean stitch in the next 4 chain spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, then 4, and so on. At the end of this 6th row, you're going to have 30 bean stitches, and then to finish, you're just going to go on top of the first bean stitch, make a slip stitch, and then make a slip stitch into this first chain space. For the 7th row, chain 1, and then repeat the same thing all around. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but what I want to do here is continue until I have this measurement. For adult large size, 19 centimeters, or about 7.5 inches. So continue like this until you have the measurement for the size that you're making. For my hat, I need this to measure about 19 centimeters. I'm not sure how many rows that is going to be, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do here, so I will meet you at the end of that row. I did a total of 8 rows. I have 40 stitches at the end of this row. I have the measurement that I need for the width of the crown. So the way that you're going to measure is right across this part here, right through the middle, and then that's how you're going to take your measurement. For me, it needs to be about 17 centimeters. So as you can see, I have the measurement that I need. It's exactly 17 centimeters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to finish this 8th row by going on top of the first bean stitch and make a slip stitch. Now for row 9, I'm going to remove this stitch marker. I don't need it anymore because into each one of these corner chain spaces, I'm only going to make now 1 bean stitch. So to begin here, make a slip stitch into the next chain space of this first. Now chain 1, and here I'm only going to make 1 bean stitch now. We're not going to increase anymore, so only make 1. And then for the chain spaces here in between, same thing, 1 bean stitch. So this is how you're going to continue for this 9th row. At the end of this 9th row, you're going to have 40 bean stitches. So continue, finish this row. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the 9th row. In this row, all I did was just bean stitches into each one of the chain spaces. I have a total of 40 bean stitches. Now here at the end of this 9th row, I have my last bean stitch, chain 1. To finish each row from here on, all you're going to do is just go on top of the first bean stitch and make a slip stitch. And here is row 9 with 40 bean stitches. Now to start each row from here on, you're just going to make a slip stitch into the next chain space, which is this one here. Now chain 1 and then make a bean stitch here. And here's the first bean stitch for the 10th row, and then into each one of the chain spaces, you're going to make a bean stitch. Chain 1 and then continue with the same thing all around. At the end of each row from here on, I'm going to have 40 bean stitches. Now I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but we're going to continue until we have the total length, but I'm going to go ahead and stop when I have about 2 inches. I'm not sure. I'd say about 2 inches, which is about 2.5 centimeters or 5 centimeters left from the total height. And that is when I'm going to start to make the brim. So continue, just repeat the same row. At the end of each row, you're going to have 40 bean stitches, and continue watching. I will let you know how many rows I'm going to do. So I will meet you at the end of that row. I'm almost done with the hat. I have done a total of 19 rows, and it's measuring from the top to the bottom. It's measuring about 20 centimeters, which is about 8 inches. Now the total length of my hat, based on the measurements that I gave you, it needs to measure between 21.5 centimeters to 23 centimeters, which is about 8.5 inches to 9 inches. So I still have about an inch left, or about 2 to 3 centimeters left from the total height. So if you're making your hat for any other size, make sure to leave about an inch so that we can start now with the brim. So for the brim here, I'm going to do the following. Here at the end of the 19th row, I joined to the top of the first bean stitch, and now I'm going to chain 1. Now right on top of this bean stitch here, I'm going to make a half double crochet. Now in the next chain space right here, I'm going to make a half double crochet, a half double crochet on top of the next bean stitch, a half double crochet in the chain space, a half double crochet on top of the next bean stitch, and so on. So here we're making a half double crochet on top of the bean stitch and a half double crochet in the chain space. And this is all I'm going to do all around. So continue for row 20. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of row 20. This is where I did half double crochets on top of the bean stitches and into the chain spaces. I have a total of 80 half double crochets at the end of row 20. Now to finish, go on top of the first half double crochet and join with a slip stitch. Now for row 21, I'm going to chain 1, beginning into the first half double crochet, which is the same one that we joined to. Start with a front post half double crochet, into the next back post half double crochet, into the next front post half double crochet, into the next back post half double crochet, and so on. This is how I'm going to continue all around for row 21, just alternating between a front post and a back post half double crochet. So continue and finish this row. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of this row 21. In this row I did front post and back post half double crochets. I have 80 stitches. To finish, go on top of the first half double crochet and join with a slip stitch. Now for row 22, I'm going to chain 1, and in this row we're going to work these stitches exactly how they are. Beginning with this first stitch, it's a front post, so make a front post half double crochet. The next one, a back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. This is all we're going to do for this row 22. So continue, finish this row, and I'll meet you at the end. I finished row 22. Here at the end, to finish, go on top of the first half double crochet and join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish row 22 with a total of 80 stitches. Now try it on, see if you like how it fits right now with this brim like this. I know we don't have the measurement yet for the total length, but I tried it on, and I think for a lot of people it would be okay with the 2 rows that we have done here, a front post and back post half double crochets. For my personal preference, I like this to be a bit wider, so I'm going to continue and make, I don't know, 1 or 2 more rows. Continue watching. I will let you know how many rows I'm going to do here. So here for row 23, we're going to do the same thing we did in row 22. So we're going to start with a front post half double crochet, back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet, and so on. This is how we're going to continue here for the rest, and continue watching. I'll let you know how many rows I'm going to do here for the rest of the hat. Like I said, I like my brim to be nice and wide, so I'm probably going to do 1 or 2 more rows. So I will meet you at the end of that row. I finished making the brim. I did a total of 4 rows of front post and back post half double crochets. Here at the end of row 24, I just joined to the beginning with a slip stitch, cut my yarn, and passed my yarn through that last loop, and the hat is all done. So this is how it looks. Now this is a reversible stitch. This is how it looks on the inside, so you can wear it on either side. Now, as far as yarn, you're going to need a total of 57 grams. This is how much I had left of 1 skein of this Scarfy Light yarn. It's a number 4 yarn. I think I'm going to go ahead and make a matching scarf. Comment below and let me know if you want me to do that. I'll gladly see what I can do. I absolutely love this yarn. It's super soft and the color is just amazing. Now you can add a pom-pom to your hat just like these. These are fur pom-poms. They're not real. Down here in the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you the link. I purchased these from Amazon, or you can make your own. I have a tutorial already in my channel on how I make my pom-poms, so I'll go ahead and leave you the link in the information box below of how I make my pom-poms. And also, if you prefer a written pattern, I'll go ahead and leave the link to my Etsy shop there. So thank you so much for your support. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.